I can't make decisions, that's the truth. Now, see, these guys have boots on, and like, I didn't know, I was told to dress casual, so I came in a plaid shirt and my surfer tennies, and my blue Levi's, and then these guys have Beatles stuff on, with a Levi jacket. So
Elephant boy!
The Monkees' Micky Dolenz, today on Pop Goes the Culture. Hi, I'm David Levin, and welcome to another quixotic episode of Pop Goes the Culture. Today, my three-part conversation concludes as Micky Dolenz talks about some of the great Monkees guest stars, reunions, what happened when Jimi Hendrix opened for the Monkees, and is it really possible that the Monkees could have done Sugar Sugar? What other songs did the Monkees turn down, and which ones did they want and didn't get?
Let's talk about what you're doing these days.
Well, most recently I was on Broadway doing that musical, Aida. That was wonderful. I played the villain. That was a great character. I'd love to do more of that, and I'm up for another couple of shows. After the Monkees, just to give you the brief history, I went to England and I became a director-producer of television and films and stage shows. I directed a musical called Bugsy Malone, based on the Alan Parker movie. One of the stars I cast was a 14-year-old Catherine Zeta-Jones. Had a lot of fun with that. Did a lot of television shows, a lot of series as a producer, writer, director. And that's all I did for like 10, 15 years. I mean, I just was on the other side of the camera, didn't do any acting, didn't do any singing, didn't do nothing. Just became a kind of a producer-director. Came back to the States in the Monkees reunion, which was only supposed to last about 3 months and turned into 3 years. And then continued directing, and that's kind of my day job even to this day. I write, I direct. I just did a movie for Lifetime television. That's sort of, like I say, my day job. I go on the road. I go out. I have a band. I go out and do solo concerts with my band, just me and my band. And my sister Coco, who's a great singer. And then I write. I have a children's book that is out called Gacky 2 Feet, which is a little. I've always been fascinated by anthropology and stuff, and so I've written a children's book based on the moment that hominids started walking on 2 feet. And I've always been fascinated by those moments. And it's going to be a series of books, I hope, sort of fictionalizing seminal moments in human evolution. And the first one's called Gacky 2 Feet. And then I have a game out, a book called Rock and Roll Trivia Game Book. Micky Dolenz Rock and Roll Trivia Game Book. And I'm writing another book in the children's book series, the first musical instrument, as a matter of fact. I'm writing that one now, which was a flute, actually. Bone flute discovered in a cave in France, 65,000 years old.
Interesting that a former
The oldest rock group.
rock group. Interesting that a former monkey is writing about evolution.
Well, not really. Everybody says that, but we did not evolve from monkeys. It's great apes.
I understand.
And I hate it. I shouldn't say I hate it, but I can't tell you how many times people want to give me a banana and have a chimpanzee on my shoulder, and I'm like this. Sorry. But because the Monkees wasn't about that any more than the Beatles were about cockroaches, or the Byrds were about parrots. That was the thing you did. You took an animal's name, and you spelled it differently. If you think about it, there was all these groups that had animal names, the Turtles, but you never saw them, with actually a turtle. That wasn't the point. That was not a connection that was meant to be made.
Boy, do I feel stupid. No, just
No, but we did not evolve. No, but you'd be surprised. Even my editor, when I was writing the original liner notes for the book, was about a monkey, talking about a monkey. I said, no, to be technically correct here, it's not a different species entirely. It's great apes, chimpanzees, and that line.
Orangutan.
And orangutans.
Anthropology.
Yeah. And so, if you want to be technically correct, I call the series of books Anthromythology.
I like that.
As I make up these little characters, these cartoon characters that,
That's a great springboard. Any cartoon interest?
I haven't actually pitched it yet.
Cool.
I intend to. Yeah.
Wow.
Make a great little series, I think.
What was it like getting together with the guys again? How did that?
In '86.
in '86. Yeah.
Well, that was interesting because I hadn't spoken to anybody really, and hadn't worked with the other three guys in years, over 10 years, 10, 12 years. And this producer guy, came over to England when I was living there, and he said, I do these summer tours, and it's the Monkees' 20th anniversary coming up. Would you be interested in going on the road for a little while? I was like, are you sure anybody would show up? And he said, I think so. And I said, well, okay. And I asked my wife at the time, and I had 3 small children. And we thought it'd be a great kind of summer vacation. Take the kids on the road in a big tour bus and pretend, and I was in production on a television series at the time, and I finished that one, and I was supposed to start another one. I put that one on hold, put that one on hiatus, and I was going to be gone for less than 3 months. I think it was, maybe 3 months over the summer. And we left, and MTV's, ran the show nonstop for, weeks and months, and it just exploded, and it became, just huge. It was the highest grossing tour that year for a couple of years. And I never actually went back to England. I stayed on the road for 3-4 years, and then kind of ended up coming back here. Got divorced actually, and then came back here to the United States. As far as meeting up with the other guys again, well, again, my attitude was always that I'm recreating this role on stage, and I'm quite happy to do that. But David and Peter, who were out on that particular tour, you'd have to ask them, but they probably had a different way of looking at things. I was always, even during Circus Boy, and this must have come from my parents, I'm sure, because they were very down to earth, not your typical Hollywood, Beverly Hills kind of showbiz, eyes and teeth, honey, eyes and teeth. Parents, very down to earth. I was always, this wasn't a conscious thing, but I always made a distinction between the character that I was on television and who I really was. I never, and to this day, never think of me as Micky Dolenz of the Monkees. Because you start doing that, and that gets really dangerous. If you start really believing that you're that person on the show, or that person on the album cover, or that can get really scary, and good for years and years of therapy. So I've always tried to maintain that difference, and in a way, think of myself in the third person. Think of that character in the third person. Would Micky do that, or would he do this, or would he say that, or would he say this, or it can be helpful to keep yourself kind of
I think it's not
sane.
a good thing to have somebody sort of play themselves if they're going to play a character. You guys you and three of you went back on Boy Meets World for a little sort of mini unofficial reunion?
Yeah, not so much a reunion. One of my best friends and writing partner is Jeffrey Sherman, who was one of the producers of the show. And I kind of did it as a favor to him. And I went on as an actor a couple of times, and then I ended up directing an episode of the show, too. Because that's kind of what I do. Like I said, my day job is mostly multiple camera sitcom.
Wow. That's fun, though, right?
Oh, yeah, it's great fun.
Directing is great. That's a lot of fun. Any great guest star stories from any of the Monkees episodes that you can recall?
Oh, God. Go on and on and on. I mean, we had a lot of great guest stars, right? From Jerry Colonna at the very first, one of the very early episodes. Rosemarie was one of the best episodes we did. Hans Conried, who hated us.
Why?
Oh, he was a wonderful actor, Hans Conried. Old school, traditional Hollywood. But, we had been encouraged to improvise right from the get-go. That was unheard of in television in those days. You had a script, you stuck to the script, you learned your lines, you did the scene. But part of what they wanted was this sort of feeling of spontaneity and improvisation as part of what gave it the charm. But it drove people nuts because they actually encouraged us to just bounce off the walls, and so we would, because 19, 20-year-old guys. And they say, okay, do anything you want. You're kidding! Whoa, baby! And we did. And they would just film everything and then take it away and cut together a show. I mean, that's what eventually started happening. And that's where you get so much of that feeling of this thing just... The problem with that theory is it's great, but the problem is that it explodes in your face sometimes, which it did. It would just get... And they'd have to shut the set down. The director would just walk off and says, okay, we got to just take, come back tomorrow. Because we would... It's like a nuclear reaction, You got to let it go because it won't work. But you got to keep a lid on it, because if you take the lid off, it'll burn a hole through the center of the earth. And so that's kind of what would happen. And it was this balancing act. And I got to hand it to the producers and directors. They managed to maintain this little balancing act between it, putting the fire out and having it boring and stayed, and letting it go to where it just like took out the entire city block. And some actors were really good at like buying into that, and Rosemary, I remember, was really good, and Stan Freberg was really good, and there was some wonderful guest stars who got it and picked up. Hans Conried, he just hated it. He was like, "Who are these little kids? Get them out of here!" I felt so bad because I was such a huge fan of his. And that particular day, we were just the rods had come out of the containment thing, and it was Chernobyl. It was like, "Wah!" And there was this little, radioactive mushroom cloud right down off Sunset and Gower. They're just like, it was the price you pay. It was like
hilarious. Let's talk about Jimi Hendrix on tour. You guys toured with Jimi Hendrix? Is that?
He was our opening act. Yeah, it was the Jimi Hendrix Experience. He was our opening act. I've told the story a lot. I'll be glad to tell it again. But I had originally seen him playing as a sideman, lead guitar for like Albert Hammond or somebody in New York, or John Hammond. Yeah, John Hammond. Right? And I'd seen him playing lead guitar for John Hammond in New York. And I don't even remember hearing his name. It was just this, you got to come down and see this guy play guitar with his teeth. That's kind of what he was known for. His little gimmick, I guess. And sure enough, went down and, whoa, that guy's really good. And months later, I was at the Monterey Pop Festival. And I guess that's when he had left and gone to England. And Chaz Chandler had, funnily enough, put together this, manufactured this group called Jimi Hendrix Experience with Jimmy and Noel and Mitch, introduced them and got them together. And I guess that's when they came back to the States. They did the Monterey Pop Festival, and I was there, and we were looking at that time, actively looking for opening acts. And I said, how about him? He's the guy that plays the guitar with his teeth. And he was very theatrical. And I thought, since the Monkees was essentially a theatrical, I perceived it as a theatrical act. I thought, and there's a theatrical act, because Jimmy, it was like with the Who even. I mean, there was an act. They were, and I thought that would be really interesting. And of course, we all thought he was an amazing, musician, and the music was very, very cool. And so I suggested it to the producers, and his people must have thought it was a good idea. And we went out on the road, and he was the opening act. But it was strange. We had a great time backstage, and partying and on the tour. But when you're in that situation as an opening act, it doesn't matter who you are. You've heard the famous stories of Axl Rose opening for the Stones and people booing him, and there's all kinds of those stories, ridiculous stories, because the fans are there to see the headliner, the main act, and they don't care who it is, that's on before. Very difficult, kind of place to be as an opening act. And so Jimmy would come out there, in his clothes and robes and things, and foxy lady, we want Davy, we want the monkey, please come in my Mickey. Now we're backstage going, oh my God, that is so embarrassing. And eventually, he got kind of fed up with it. I can't blame him. And also broke a record, and then the rest is history. I'm sure he would have done quite well without the Monkees. I don't think that made a huge difference in his life. But who knows?
I wanted to ask you, there were two songs that I heard you guys turn down originally. And if you could comment on those two songs, one was, and if it's true or not, one was "Love Will Keep Us Together." Did you guys turn that song down?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
Could have. Somebody could have. I didn't.
And "Knock Three Times."
No.
And
Not
Sugar,
those.
Sugar?
Sugar Sugar?
Yeah.
Sugar Sugar was probably one of the songs on the slate, but when we sort of got all the control over the music, Donnie Kirshner, was fired, and we started controlling the music, and he took that song, and the story I heard is he took that song amongst others and said, well, I'm going to start a animated, the Archies, then I don't have to deal with anybody. I don't have to have this problem. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the songs that they were, because it was from the Brill Building. No, I do remember, though, turning down a couple of songs. One was Is That All There Is, that Peggy Lee eventually did. But looking back, she did a pretty good job with that. And I'm not sure how I could have sang that song at 20 or 22. Is that all there is, my friend? Well, that's, hadn't accomplished a whole lot at 22. And the other one, the one I do regret turning down, was The Diary, David Gates tune.
Oh, it's a great song.
And one I tried to record, but I didn't get to it in time, was Old Fashioned Love Song. Yeah, Paul Williams.
Great song. I hear he was up to be a Monkee at one point.
Oh, that's right, Paul was too. In fact, Paul has never let me live it down, because I worked with him on Bugsy Malone when I commissioned him to do some more songs for the musical. He reminded me, he said, I'll never forgive you, because he was also up for Circus Boy. I'm sorry, Paul. I love you just the same.
At least you threw him some work on the Bugsy.
That's it for now. I'm David Levin. You can follow Pop Goes the Culture on Twitter at PopGoCulture, Facebook, or email me at popgoestheculturetv@gmail.com. We read all your comments. And please, don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the show, please share it with your friends. I'm here with a new interview every Monday. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.